All right, you're still watching the program this morning on ITV. It's now time for our second discussion. This time around, we shall be looking at the educational sector. If you remember, a few weeks ago, the social media was agog of a story where a 12-year-old boy was killed or beaten, alleged to be beaten to death by some fellow students in school. Although he did not die immediately, but the injury sustained from that beating led to his death after some few days. This morning we shall be looking at bullying, cultism, and other vices in schools, especially boarding houses. But you cannot rule that fact out that where you have group of students where they are not well monitored, things like this will happen. But I will leave it to the experts to tell us more. Why do we have these increasing cases of bullying in schools and cultism? Why have we not been able to checkmate them? So I have in the studio this morning Rahiat Abdullahi, I get your name correctly. She's a communication strategist and digital marketer. Very good morning to you.
Thank you, sir. Good morning.
Yes, let's start with the case in Lagos where the 12-year-old boy Sylvester Omori was beaten, and it went viral on the social media. Now, when you saw that report, what, as a mother or as a sister, as a person, what was your impression? What did you think? I mean, such a thing still happening in our public schools these days.
When I saw the news of Sylvester Oromoni, I was really touched. I was heartbroken because bullying didn't just start. Bullying has been there since way back. In fact, I attended a boarding school. I schooled in FGC Kano, and it was the boarding I attended. And I was bullied as well. So many of us in boarding schools were bullied. And I expected that a lot should have changed because the educational system keeps evolving.
Yes.
And seeing this made me think that there's a lot of gap still in our educational system. And I think that a lot needs to be done.
So if you talk about gaps, what are these gaps? What are we supposed to have done? Looking at your time to this time, you expected to see changes, and these changes are not there. So what are the changes you expected?
Okay, I expected that there should be policies. I'll call it anti-bullying policies.
Okay.
That would checkmate students to ensure that bullying no longer exists. And teachers especially, since there are kids under their care, should be able to check out for things like this, even where the policies are not there or probably not being implemented. Teachers should keep their eyes open and also listen to some of these students. Students are taking complaints to them and nothing is being done because they feel, okay, it should be, it is normal. That's what a lot of people see it as normal. Because when we were going through some of those bullying those days, we complained to our parents and they would be like, just endure it. It's part of life. It's part of the schooling
when you say
system.
it's part of life, now let's look at the same case scenario of Sylvester. When you tell a child it's part of life and you ignored it or you said, please stay away from trouble. And his own case, the student attacked him right there in the hostel. And will you tell a child of 12-year-old that it's a way of life bullying? It will affect his emotion.
Yeah.
And it is not able to control it. Some of them, like for instance, his own case was linked to cultism.
Yeah.
He refused to join the cult. Now, if you tell a guy or a child that it is a way of life, is normal, don't you think you're already pushing him to the side of his those that are trying to lure him maybe into cultism?
Yeah, that's part of the gaps that I said from the parts of the parents where they tell you to just endure it or probably they ignore some of those issues or they don't see it as anything. But you see, when you tell a child that it's part of life, you are pushing him further to the hands of those bullies. And he will also be emotionally drained.
Yeah.
He might not be able to concentrate in school. Some of these children also grow up to become bullies themselves because they already see it as a way of life because you already mentioned it to them. So that's one gap and one way that we need to see this gap closed, where parents now need to listen to their children even more. They need to communicate better with their children and take it up seriously when their children begin to mention that they are bullied. You see? And it happened in even a school environment, even in the hostel. So it raised a lot of questions online as to whether most of the children in the school are now also part of this.
And then most time when
cultism.
these things happen like this, the children of the rich are always the victims. Why is it this way? Is that the side of the one who is bullying the person, or the victims? You always see that they are from the richer family, especially when it comes to trying to lure somebody into cultism.
Yeah.
You get to see that most of these people who are the victims and those who are the bullies are from the rich families.
Okay, so I think it's because some of these children that are not really from the rich would want to use some of these things to probably want to be on par with that child. Some of them would want to bully you to collect your provisions and things that they do not get from their own homes. Some of them want to do it because they feel, okay, if I do this, I feel more protected, I feel more powerful than the other person. So I feel these are some of the reasons why this bullying takes place, especially where you said the rich children are more affected. So you see, it's more of societal differences or background differences where they come from. Some of these children in the streets that are not really from the that are not really from the rich background, they feel, okay, I need to be on par with this person. So what do I need to do? I need to get something to make me more powerful. So this is where power imbalance also comes in, where you see, okay, I want to be more powerful. What do I have that this other person doesn't have? Maybe the physique, the physical appearance. He's way bigger than the other person, and he tends to use it to bully the other person. So this is one way it happens. And another way is, let's say, from their own mental states, the bullies now. This is probably what they watch from their homes. So they said the education of a kid is like a writing on a rock. So maybe they're watching it already from home, their father battering their mother, or their father bullying their mother.
So
And
that brings me to the next question. What is the role of parents in all this? Just like you're trying to establish now.
Okay, so the role of parents is we lead by example. We try to portray what we want to see in our children. So you don't necessarily say it by mouth, you act it out.
Okay.
So if you want your child to not be a bully, do not be a bully yourself. That's one way. Another way is also to communicate with your child more often and listen to them when they speak to you. Try to be friends with, they are way back, some of us don't have the opportunity to even speak to our parents just one-on-one like this because we are scared of them, because we feel, okay, if we come and we say things that we are not supposed to say, we will be beaten or shouted at. So there are things that need to change, especially on the part of parents. We should listen to our children more often and in a more polite manner. Tell them. Some of us don't know our children are even the bullies. So from those kind of stages, from the little stage, you see some of those traits or some of those times, you see them, okay, maybe somebody comes to report them. Don't protect them because you feel, okay, those outsiders are coming to report them and probably they will want to do something to them. Reprimand them and also bring them closer. Don't reprimand them and just leave them like that. Reprimand them and advise them. Tell them things to do and things not to do, and also act it out yourself.
All right. Now, if parents have this major roles, you say, now let's come back to the educational sector itself, the government. We've seen that cultism has been evolving in different forms. These days, they even initiate them online. We've seen different forms. So why have we not been able to tackle it from the grassroots? Because when you go to university, they are seeing it already as a way of life in the university. But this time, back to primary schools, we have cultisms in primary schools, where little children are being initiated to different cult groups. So how do we begin to look at these things as government? How do we begin to tackle this from the primary level before it gets to that level? Because a child who is already in cult in secondary school, he doesn't need any other orientation when he gets to university.
When he gets to the university, yeah.
So how do we get these things right from this level of education?
Okay, so like I said before, there's a need to implement some of these policies if the policies are already in place. But if they are not, then this is a wake-up call for our governments to enact some of these policies.
Okay.
So, and to make sure that some of these policies are followed true and true.
They're monitored.
Yes, they are monitored. So where you have a kid already in primary school and trying to exhibit some of these things, he should be called to order. By implementing some of these things, you can punish the child, but then also advise. Because when you punish and they keep seeing it as, okay, whenever I do it, I'm being punished. So why don't I just do it and get punished? You see? So, but when they are being punished and also oriented from that stage to know that some of these things are bad, because they are kids after all. So some of these things they do, maybe because the other person is doing it, they feel it is right. So they can just be given that orientation from that stage to know that some of these things are bad. Because when you do it, this is the end result you get. You'll be arrested at the end of the day, or you might be killed in the process. So you see, when they are told that, okay, this is it, this is the end result, some of them from that stage, they begin to get afraid of, okay, I don't want this to happen, I don't want this to happen. And they put it in at the back of their mind that, okay, when I do this and I get punished and this happens, am I liable to become this in the future? And I really don't want, I want my career at this. Then they begin to reorientate themselves to live by the good examples.
Well, let's look at the like you mentioned, the emotional being of that child that is being bullied is always affected. Are there other factors as the child grows up that you think this kind of situation will results in his lifetime? For instance, a child who knows that he comes out from a home where both parents are always at each other. He has that, by the time he grows up, becomes maybe a man or a wife and is married, and he wants to start exhibiting such thing he learned from home. Now, what does this do to a child who is being bullied as he grows up? If he's not being tackled at an early stage, what does bullying do to a child?
Okay, so first of all, it leads to depression for them. Because already those scenarios, the flogging, it might not really be flogging, but even the name calling could leave a scar on their mind, and it makes them not emotionally balanced. Okay. So, and this could lead to other stuff, like it could lead to an attempted suicide. Yeah, from the part of the individual, that's the person being bullied. It could lead to attempted suicide. It could lead to them not concentrating in school and probably eventually dropping out of school because they feel, okay, if I don't leave this school, how would I be able to cope with these bullies? So they leave the school, and when they become dropouts, it's already affecting their career. And in the future, they become touts, or they wouldn't really do something meaningful with their lives. So some of them, again, because they are being bullied, they might want to take revenge. You see, they begin to nurture things like, okay, so this is how the society works. I need to be the tough guy as well. So they begin to term it in their mind that, okay, this is the right way to go. And then they end up being bullies themselves. Then it extends to violence in their homes.
All right. Nice. Social, you are you're a communication strategist. Now we have NGOs, we have CSOs who tackle issues like this. Will you say they've done enough? Have they done enough to say that we address these issues in our schools? Because leaving it to the government alone, of course, they can't do everything. Yes. So what's the role of individuals like that, like the civil societies, to ensure that we have these things addressed in our schools?
Okay, the first thing I'll say is awareness creation or advocacy. So advocacy never stops. So it's something we need to continue to do. So people can be aware of the effects of bullying. People can be aware of some of these things some of this bullying and what it could lead to. So when we also do this advocacy, we take it up with action as well. So we go to some of these schools as CSOs to checkmate some of these schools if these policies are being implemented. Because of course the government will put some of these policies in place, but how well is it being enacted or being implemented? So it's something that CSOs also need to take up from their angle to check some of these schools. It might not necessarily just be in Lagos where some of these incidents happen most. It can be in Abuja, any other states. You go to some of these states to check some of these schools because this happened in private school. So imagine government schools, public schools. It happens even more. So you check some of these schools to see if some of these policies are being implemented. And also awareness. Awareness can be done even on TV, radio, and everywhere. So to ensure that these situations doesn't happen again, we don't have to keep quiet till it happens, just like it happened with Sylvester. It's something that we needed to have taken up long before now so that some of these things will be prevented.
All right, we have other vices apart from bullying, cultism. There are other vices in schools. For instance, we've had cases where students are sexually molested, even in secondary schools. Yeah. There was a case here in the FCT where it was alleged that a student was sexually abused by a teacher, and it led to her death also. Now, if we have cases where school authorities are involved in things like this, do you think we can get out of this? Well, the case in study now, the one in Abuja, we've not heard anything about it, and the case is still there. The little girl she's late now. And then we have the teacher. We've not had anything from the government or from the school authority to say somebody has been prosecuted for this act. Now, if we have school authorities trying to protect this, if you look at Sylvester's issue also, the school tried to play around with it, that he sustained those injuries from the football pitch. Now, when we have school authorities trying to cover up this kind of crime, how do you think we'll get out of it?
Okay, so that's where the government also needs to strictly come in. Because some of these schools are doing or protecting the teacher for their own image as well. So if within the school this is already happening and there are no government policies backing it, then we are getting nowhere. So government policies also need to affect the school, not just the persons involved. So there is a Violence Against Person Prohibition Act, which also needs to come into play, where if this happens, no matter who is involved, needs to be prosecuted for things like this. So I feel the government needs to do more, and policies. There are a lot of policies being made, but there's a need for implementation.
Let's look at the victims now, the male and the female. Whom do you think is more bullied in schools? Because from the cases like this last, if you look at the case we have at hand now, the male, the sexual abuse case is a female.
Is a female,
So let's know, in the cases of bullying in school, who are more affected? Is it the male folks or the female students?
Okay, so anybody can be bullied. But I think the male folks are being bullied more. The ladies, I could say, sexual harassment is what most often happens to them. But boys are being bullied more. For reasons being that so many of them might be soft-natured, and the other person will come and say, you're not a tough guy. Because already it is the notion in society that for you to be a man, you need to be tough. So if you are soft like a lady, they tend to bully you. If you are also tough and you have a girlfriend and they be like, you understand? Some of them will say, okay, for having a girlfriend or for behaving like this with your babe, why are you too soft with her? You get, and they tend to bully you as well. Bullying are in different forms. You can be bullied by name shaming, name calling, body shaming. You get, maybe some of them have the physique of a lady. And already, maybe they are even trying to act tough, but because of their physique, they tend to bully them as well. And there's also relational bullying, where they speak to you in ways unimaginable. I even read something where they said there's this bullying where nobody even knows you are being bullied. The bully acts soft in front of everyone. So when you even say so person bullied, and they'll be like, why would you say so person bully you? And nobody will want to believe you. So what do you then do in this situation? You want to take it into your own hands. And taking it into your own hands could lead to other things. You might get aggressive and even end up hurting the other person even more.
So as we wrap up this...
So boys are being bullied
so as we wrap up this segment, what would be your final advice? What would be your advice to parents and school authorities in seeing how we reduce these incidences in schools?
Okay, so to parents, I'll say that you should listen to your child more, communicate with them more, and also try to be in your best behavior. So your child would also watch and not be a bully in school. To school authorities and to schools, I feel even if some of these anti-bullying policies are not in place, try to put one in place yourself. Try to put one in place and ensure that it is followed through and implementation happens, so that all of these incidents will not occur and then your school would now be shamed. So, and the society at large, I think we need more awareness from the government, from CSOs, even as individuals. We should keep ourselves informed to ensure that from whatever angle we fight bullying. Thank you.
Yeah, I must thank you so much for being on the program right here at
Radiat
Abdullahi. She's a communication strategist and digital marketer. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so
Well, we'll
much.
take
Sir.
a quick break here. When we return, the program this morning on ITV continues.